Hello everyone, my name is Aurora. I am standing here beneath the flying rainbow lasagna in the new location of its flight, Northern California, and I have some more information to share with you. I've been recording these videos from the trees. This one is not from the trees per se, but it's some information that I have wanted to share with people for a very, very long time. So I recently relocated here to Northern California, and one of the reasons why I came was specifically for cannabis freedom and access to medical marijuana. I came from upstate New York, specifically Woodstock, where it is not legal to possess and use cannabis. I would often record videos, make references, and share other people's work, but I was not able to speak overtly about cannabis because it was illegal where I lived. So I am now so very happy to say that I have established residency in California, and I'm the proud owner of a 215 recommendation. And that means that I can now legally possess this substance, and more to the point, it means that I can now talk about openly my beliefs and not have to be concerned about persecution because of it. So one of the main things is cannabis goes back, and its use goes back very, very far, all the way into the Bible. Whether or not you are Jewish or Christian, if you live in this time and place, you find yourself in a Judeo-Christian society. And what people need to know is that Judeo-Christianity grew out of the use of cannabis as a sacrament, and that the word Christ means anointed one, and that the oil that was used to anoint the Christ was heavily laden with cannabis. So cannabis has an ancient historical usage. I want to get into what I have often said to people in face-to-face, that we live in a dark age. We live in, quote unquote, the dark ages. Pretend the Enlightenment never actually happened. Because I liken this to the dark ages because in exactly the same way that during the dark ages there was a plague, literally the bubonic plague. People would be dropping dead. No one knew why. People were extremely superstitious, and they did not have a way to attribute the death that they saw. They didn't understand that little tiny microbes were hopping off of the fleas that were hopping off of the rats and cats and were making people sick. So of course they pointed the finger of blame at everything. Sorry about that, that's technology. They pointed the finger of blame at everything other than what the actual cause was. And the cause was they dumped their trash and their filth everywhere. They lived within and surrounded by sewage. In the Middle Ages, they would simply dump their trash out the window, and they just had running sewage in the streets. That was normal. People couldn't understand why that was making people sick, all right? Of course, to your modern ears, you say, ah ha ha ha, how foolish of them, right? But now let's look at the modern plague. Plague, quote unquote, is cancer. So many people are getting this modern plague. People say we need to devote energy to researching. Why is this happening? We can't imagine why people are getting this prevalent disease. And it is very disingenuous, and it shows the ignorance, the lack of awareness that people have in this time and place. Cancer comes from carcinogens that are being dumped into your environment all the time. They're in your food, they're in the air, they're in the cosmetics and skin ointments that people put on your body. People are constantly being exposed to cancer-causing chemicals, and they are unaware of the consequences. And the society of this time and place does very little to make people aware of the consequences, and even wants to live in denial. So for example, if people really wanted to know where their cancer came from, what they should do is test every single cancer patient and their hair to see what chemical toxins they have been exposed to, correlate the data, track down which companies actually manufacture these substances, and of course perform a class action lawsuit against those companies. But that would, significantly harm the economy, and is not something that people who preserve the status quo want to do. So in exactly the same way, during the Middle Ages and the Dark Ages, the people who didn't get the plague were often persecuted. And the people in the Middle Ages who didn't get bubonic plague were Jewish people. The reason they didn't get the plague was because they observed the laws of kashrut, laws of kosher from the Torah that go back long time ago helped people to maintain their hygiene. So because the Jewish people were instructed to bathe much more regularly than their Catholic counterparts, who actually were told by the church, at the inquisitorial church at the time, never to bathe and to actually sew themselves into their underwear for the length of the winter and never actually touch themselves. That caused bubonic plague, and the people who didn't listen to the inquisitorial church and actually bathed and washed their hands and observed basic hygiene with their food didn't get sick. And this is analogous to our modern age, where people who use cannabis are able to prevent the development of cancer and treat whatever cancers are developing. So now, in this modern age, the analogy to the inquisitorial Catholic Church is the federal government, the federal laws that persecute people who use or distribute cannabis. So much to be said here that I am saying to you, using cannabis is a form of basic mental, emotional, and spiritual / energetic hygiene. So also it is important to note, it is not simply the ingestion of the substance, it is how the substance is ingested. I highly recommend that people read about and learn about and begin juicing the raw leaf of the cannabis plant. Raw cannabis is not psychoactive, so you do not have to be concerned about feeding it to people who are compromised, unfamiliar with the effects, small children, people who are elderly, people who would be otherwise extremely befuddled by extremely high measures of THC. You can feed them raw cannabis juice and not be concerned about it, and it still has all the anti-inflammatory and anti-cancer wonderful compounds in it. And the other thing is whole plant extract, which it goes by many names, but it is basically using preferably ethanol, an alcohol solvent, in order to remove all of the chemicals of the plant and concentrate it down into an oil or a liquid that can be ingested orally. So these are the ways that you can maintain your energetic hygiene. It's not just about ingesting it, though. When you ingest psychoactive cannabis, it makes one very open, very porous. It makes you open to other people's energy systems. It makes you open and vulnerable to being influenced by positive things or by negative things. So a good example of this is I once found myself in an airport under the influence of cannabis oil, feeling very, very open. And I could really sense the ailments and discomforts of all of the people who were sitting around me next to me. And of course, in that circumstance, what you need to do is pray for people and their ailments, and also set up an appropriate boundary, because you don't want all of that to come into you. So it's not just ingesting the plant and just ingesting the right dosage. When you ingest the plant, it makes you more energetically or psychically open and perceptive. So it is very important to use that time well. When one ingests cannabis, I heartily recommend taking time to sit in nature, taking time to be silent, and to, if possible, be in sunlight, to exude unconditional love, be in gratitude, literally count one's blessings, literally, if you know people who are suffering, verbalize prayers to ask for their ending of their suffering, and understand that you're in a powerful place of manifestation. You have the capacity to paint your reality. You have the capacity to create what you want to create. This is the real reason why cannabis as a substance has been persecuted so heavily by the status quo and the powers that be, and people who would like to maintain humanity in a less than sovereign state. That basically, when one begins to use cannabis, one begins to wake up to one's own powers of manifestation, literally to harness your own imagination, your inner capacity to envision things that do not yet exist, and then cause them to actually exist and come into being. Each one of you are powerful manifestation machines. Cannabis can be an amplifier to that manifestation. Seriously, when you ingest cannabis, mind your mind. Mind your words. Mind your emanations, because what you are sending out is being amplified even higher, and you have the capacity to choose what you send out. Send out things that you wish to experience. Send out things that are positive. This is what I'm talking about when I talk about basic mental, emotional, and spiritual hygiene. You know, the people who knew you needed to wash your physical form to prevent yourself from getting infectious diseases. Well, people in this time and age need to be informed that they need to cleanse their aura. You need to protect your energy field. You need to prevent harmful or negative or energy of dis-ease from coming into your energy field, and also learn to exude positivity, because as much as you can be affected by others, you can affect others. Take time to send out positivity, even if you are in a time of needing help, even if you are in a time of illness or having lack of abundance or lack of resources. One of the best things to do in order to change your luck is to redirect and send out some positivity to others. So that's a gentle reminder today for each one of us. Send out some positivity to others. Do a little bit of research into the Judeo-Christian origins of the use of cannabis, and this actually goes all the way back to the ancient Sumerians. And I have often said that I feel cannabis should be so much a part of our dietary regime. It should be in the same way that corn syrup and caffeine, two substances that I don't eat, are in everything. And I have to actually specifically seek out certain products that don't contain it. We should have cannabis in almost every product. First of all, cows and beef should feed off of hemp and hemp leaves. It should be in the dairy products. Instead of bovine growth hormone concentrated into our dairy products and butter and yogurt, we should have cannabis concentrated into our dairy products and butter. This is an essential part of our diet, especially now that there's more radiation in the atmosphere, unfortunately, due to Fukushima. Again, the people who will be preventing and treating and not developing the modern plague are people who understand the necessity of this mental hygiene. So, in order to show that I am 215 compliant, I encourage all of you to either change the laws in your neck of the woods or relocate yourself to a place where you can legally grow, possess, and ingest cannabis. Ingest it and share it with your neighbors freely. Thank you so very much. Please tune in for more videos and information from Flying Rainbow Lasagna. Check me out, flyingrainbowlasagna.com.